Cyberpunk Uncensored.
And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Cybersmily with my co-host.
I am Wisdom. Nice to talk to you all again.
And this is another episode of the Forlorn Dopes. Today we have a special guest. You might know him on Facebook as Phil McCracken. He's kind of been promoting various cyberpunk groups, and we figured we'd have him on and start talking some cyberpunk. How you doing, Phil?
Thank you. I'm doing well, thank you. It's been a while since you guys first invited me, like a month and a half, but life stuff has got its way of getting in the way, so I'm glad to be here.
No? We are glad to have you, friend. Glad to have you.
Yes, we are.
You have been a supporter of ours for quite a while now, so.
Agreed. So, we can get into it. So, Phil, how did you first get into cyberpunk?
I got into cyberpunk many, many years ago, like so many others. I was part of a gaming club here in Baltimore, Maryland, and a friend of mine brought a magazine, and they had an advertisement for this new game. Well, I'd been gaming since maybe a year before that, 1987. I thought I was never going to run a game, and then he showed me this ad, and it's like, okay, this is right up my alley. So that spring or summer when it debuted back in 1988, a bunch of us jumped into our friend Scirocco, piled in there like clowns in a clown car, and off to the local game store we went.
Nice.
Very
so
nice.
I got the original black box set. I also had Solo of Fortune 1 and Near Orbit.
Yeah,
that's the original lineup right there. I
was unfortunate enough to I was introduced to Cyberpunk 2013, and that's how I got into it. But by the time I really decided, okay, this is definitely a game I want to continue playing and start running. By that time, 2020 came out. So I wasn't lucky enough to snatch a box set. And of course, back then it was, when you had a bunch of mutual friends, one person would buy the game and everyone would use it. So
that's how it worked out for me, because I became the forever Cyberpunk GM at that point. Granted, I sucked at the beginning, but I was the only one who knew the rules and loved the world, and that was it.
Yeah, that accurately describes my first 10, 15 years playing the game.
Now, we played all variety of games at the Games Club, but, Cyberpunk was definitely, mine and mine alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so glad for you guys and the new players, because you guys have created so much content that, they can just reach out and grab it. When I started, it was just me and my book.
Yeah, that was before the internet really took flight.
Right.
And by the time the late 90s, early 2000s, that when you had basically a surge of hundreds of websites, from little bits of content to extreme sites like Datafortress2020, my site, and a few other sites.
I got the internet in 1996, and the very first thing I looked up was Cyberpunk 2020.
In 88, I had heard of, well, it wasn't really the internet at that point either.
Yep.
No, I was just Usenet, dial up, message boards and whatnot.
So yeah, I was out there in the wilderness like a babe, all by myself.
Yeah, it's funny that you talked about a gaming club, because that's how I kind of really got into gaming. Was my town, there was a gaming club. This was back in the late 70s. That did like Dungeons and Dragons, Traveler, and some other games that were out at that time. And it was like, it was a hefty size. It was like 30 to 40 people. So there was always like five different games happening all at once. And it's hard to find gaming clubs nowadays, I think, since the advent of the internet.
Right, exactly. I mean, that was the beauty of it for me, because I'm a very animated GM. I very rarely sit down behind the screen. I'm usually walking around the table, waving my arms, making voices, and doing different weird things, and I can't really do that online effectively. So I would love...
Online is a different animal altogether. There will never be a time when I don't prefer live face-to-face gaming. As much as I love online gaming as a substitute, when you can't do that, it doesn't hold a candle.
Precisely. So anybody out there, I encourage them, if you can do it face-to-face at least once, do it and you'll see the difference or feel the difference.
Right. So we've all been there gaming for, God, it sounds like all three of us have been there since the advent of cyberpunk. So let's get into like recent events within cyberpunk. Basically, I kind of fell off the grid with cyberpunk until the trailer, or what are they calling it? The hiring promotional video of the 2077 game, which really kind of instilled back into me, even though I'm not playing anymore and don't have too many people who do play, that really got me back in, or started my cyberpunk juices again to get my site up and running again.
And that's great. I mean, sometimes it just takes a little bit of inspiration to like spark it off again.
Yeah. So when 2013 hit and that trailer came out, have you even played Cyberpunk 2077 yet, or?
Sadly, my little Chromebook couldn't even handle that. But it's so funny because when my friend saw the trailer, and again, I am the Cyberpunk guy for our group, I got like a dozen different messages. Hey, Phil, check out this trailer. And I loved it. I watched it a dozen times the first day I saw it. I loved how they overlaid, old Night City and stacked new stuff on top of that. So you got that blend of the old aesthetic plus that a little shinier chrome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I like the love letter to the game it was based off of. I was ashamed that more didn't come through in the actual game.
Right.
But there was still plenty of it. There is just a ton of beautiful bits and homages to the original game and bits of reference, and the video game is much better than people want to give it credit for.
And
bugs in all. The way I feel about it is, I get to see Night City. I don't care how many bugs it has. I get to see Night City.
I mean, that was our consensus too, is that after 30 years, 40 years, no, 30 years. After 30 years, we get to fucking finally walk around Night City. That is not something I thought would ever happen. And good Lord, I am pleased as punch every time I load the video game.
Yeah, and it saddens me that, an old schooler like you, Phil, isn't never got it or hasn't had a chance yet to really play the game. We should start like a foundation for old school cyberpunks, punkers.
Get
who need
the old dudes consoles.
Yeah.
Arms for the poor.
Because like for me as an old schooler, just like what Wisdom said, it was just it really, and I think the old schoolers appreciate the game more than people who are just game of the week type of people. And to me, that game was definitely a love letter to all of us. So I do appreciate what CDPR did for us as a community, and it also instilled, I think, excitement about cyberpunk, in which it got those old school cyberpunk players going, and it also, I think, opened it up to a lot of new players because of that hype. And then, of course, our Talsorian now had a deadline to start introducing their next generation of cyberpunk. Because at the time, so I started going to a gaming convention years ago up in Massachusetts called TotalCon, and back I think in 2014 is when Mike Pondsmith actually started coming to that con, and I actually was in a few of his games. It's very hard because they often sell out almost within seconds. But luckily I was able to get in a few of his games over the years. But back in 2014, he was talking about the game. And he was also talking about Black Chrome. However, I don't think he really was mentioning Red as a system. So I think he wanted to push out Black Chrome before going to the new system and kind of like bridging that gap. But I have a feeling that everything kind of changed with licensing and history and how people were accepted. So but he did run a lot of demos of Red before it came out at that con, and I think he also did a Gen Con in Origins. I think it was another one he went to.
Yeah, I envy you. You got to meet the man in person. I was fortunate in my little corner of geekdom to actually speak to him and Lisa. This was back in about 2014. I had put out a feeler to them, said, "Hey, I'm running Cyberpunk at my local convention. You have any kind of swag that you can send me, and things like that." I was not expecting any kind of response. I got a response that same hour, and they sent me some books, some flyers, some pamphlets, and It was awesome. So I ran it. People loved it. Actually went home and started running their own game. They only did it for like 18 months, but they still did it.
Yeah.
So I called them. Hey, I'm expecting to get a secretary, because for me, RTG was this colossal entity, and it was Lisa. I was like, I'm sitting here like.
She took a very personal hand in things.
Yes, this is the lady herself, and I'm just sitting there like fluttering, and talked to her about 5 minutes, and then she says, "Hold on a moment," and then I hear her speaking to someone in the background. "Hey, go say hi. His name is Phil, and he runs our game in Baltimore." I'm thinking to myself, no, she is not talking to him. And then that voice comes over the line.
Nice.
I fanboy all over the seat. And I can't remember what I said or what he asked me, but I know I just thanked him profusely. Him and her, because Cyberpunk is the game that not only got me out of my gaming shell, it got me out of my personal shell too, because you have to be personable if you're going to run an RPG.
Yep.
And that was the game that motivated me to run an RPG. So everything else that followed, I attributed to Cyberpunk and Team Pondsmith.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate the love, man. Yeah, I always view Mike as the visionary, crazy artist, head in the cloud, and Lisa is his wrangler, and doing the day-to-day, trying to keep that crazy mind focused on one thing or the other.
She was I only ever communicated with her through emails and whatnot, but she was always super friendly and cordial to me. She is the friendly face of the corporation, while Mike is the boisterous, booming voice of the corporation.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was very envious that you actually got to play under him, directly. That was awesome.
He rubs it in all the time.
All the time, man. Because he doesn't do it very often, which I recently found out that basically he just goes to Gen Con and Origins and this Total Con, which is up in Massachusetts, and I always thought it was like, just a very local con that no one really knows about, but he started coming there as his pleasure con, right? A place where he goes for fun, not necessarily on business, which is, the other two.
Right.
And I'm just amazed that, the old school people that this game has, and I think he came there because, so I don't know if you know these names, but like Tim Kask and Frank Metzer, those two guys used to go to TotalCon. Tim I think still does. Frank I'm not quite sure about. I think he might have kind of retired from the con circuit, but if you know those two names, so Tim Kask is one of the originators or co-founder, not really a co-founder, but just back in the infancy of TSR and Dungeons and Dragons. He actually started Dragon Magazine, and Frank Metzer is a prolific author of various TSR products. I think his biggest claim to fame was the original Temple of Elemental Doom, or Elemental Evil.
That's a pretty big claim to fame right there.
Yeah.
My job? What? Oh, sorry, wrong Temple of Elemental Evil.
Yeah, so you had those two, and there's a few other guys who come out here to this con, and so yeah, it's. I mean, I really don't play D&D when I'm at cons because the majority of it is like Living Greyhawk or Living Forgotten Realms or some other thing that if you're not part of the niche, you're missing out. Which kind of turned me off because oftentimes you're at a table with a bunch of players who are, I need those magic items, and are really aggressive, snotty, and arrogant about pieces of paper and not really enjoying the game.
Understandable. Yeah, I love running at conventions, doing Cyberpunk for the first time at a convention, again, local convention, and it was great. I mean, at that time, again, we're talking about late 80s, haven't even hit 90 yet, and most people had never even heard of it. So I presented something unique to them that they had never even seen before. I would like to think, in my, own arrogant way, that somehow they went out later on and bought some books and started running it themselves.
You can always dream.
I've never actually been to a gaming convention, much to my much to my eternal disappointment. I've been to many, many, many comic book conventions. And of course, there were games being run at those comic book conventions, but I've never been to an actual dedicated gaming convention.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
One of these days.
I've had various spouts of going to one or two a year, dropping off because real life didn't work out so I could play, but lately, I've been getting back into it. But actually, if you have a chance, to me, a gaming convention is kind of, you kind of want to go with a couple of friends, right?
Yeah. I don't like doing anything without friends.
Secondly, the people you can meet, really you can spark off great friendships with. And even, the one thing I like about gaming conventions is it is a one shot, right? And you're given a character, you don't have to roll one up. Here's a character. Some sessions will give you a bit of background around the character to kind of role play them out. Those are the ones I kind of prefer. And then you just play acting, I remember going, and the one and only time I went to Gen Con, I was in a Cthulhu game, and I'm reading the character, and I'm, kind of as an introvert, I really don't introduce myself or talk very much. But reading the character, reading that, okay, he's English, so I started putting on an English accent. And throughout the game, I was talking with a British accent. Finally, after everything was done, and I'm like, hey guys, it was great playing with all of you and all this stuff, and all of them like looking at me like, and I'm like, what? And you're like, we thought you were from England. I'm like, oops. Really? I did that great of a job.
Bro. Whoa.
But the one thing about gaming conventions is, if you don't plan on ever going to a gaming convention, then it really shouldn't matter how you act or how you behave, right? Because all you're there to do is have fun. And you can like I said, you can spark off some great friendships. Some games aren't as great as others. But it's definitely an atmosphere that's very conducive to your gaming habits. If you're a long-time gamer, it's definitely a place you want to go because you're with your people.
You're with your people, and you have a variety of games to choose from. Hey, I don't like this game. I've looked at your profile and your backstory, and okay, but I'm going over the other two tables, which might actually have something I want. You can pick and choose.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, personally, the like con gaming has never really appealed to me, just because it's not what I'm looking for in a role playing game. However, I've recently come to the realization that where con gaming becomes useful is it lets you try out new things. So I wish I could experience that. Here in Northwest Arkansas, we don't get a lot of gaming conventions. In general, when one takes place, I've got to go to like Tulsa or Kansas City. It's starting to get better, but we take it a day at a time, and hopefully one of these days I'll be able to attend a gaming convention.
Yeah,
Hope alive.
I think 90s was probably one of the golden ages of gaming cons because, that was kind of at the height of Dungeons and Dragons with 2nd edition and a bunch of innovative new types of game like cyberpunk were coming out. Call of Cthulhu has been around for a while, but, it was starting to pick up.
It was huge in the 90s.
Yeah. So all of those kind of pushed, because I mean, even in my small state of Connecticut, there was 3 to 5 conventions just in that state back in the 90s every year. Granted, now it's kind of died off to the point of maybe one or two. And the big role-playing role-playing con I used to go to kind of has converted itself into more of a board game con.
That does happen too often. We're just gonna switch over to board games because they are eternal.
Yep. And you also
more
get
universally appealing.
Yeah.
So.
And you get a lot of new kids and families that want to, because that's the other thing that happened, I think, in the 2000s was all these gamers are now having families and becoming adults. So a few of the cons, specifically target, okay, we're going to have this con during a school break, or in which people can get off and be able to go to these conventions again. So
I miss going with friends. A lot of the folks I met through the gaming club, who are still my friends to this day. Like my best friend Ray, he's the one who drugged me kicking and screaming to the gaming club. No, not. He did introduce me to it, and I am forever grateful for that because that led to everything else that followed, including me becoming the GM that I am today.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ray.
So, Phil, have you had spurts of, dry spells with Cyberpunk in a few years because of real life? You just never got or was able to run it, or has it always been a consistent thing?
Oh, sadly, over the last 30 plus years, it has not been as consistent as I wanted it to be, but I did have my dry spells. There was times when I only had, I could only do one-on-ones, one player and me. And I love one-on-ones. I know a lot of people don't like it. They say it's too intensive as far as role playing and things like that, but I love them because they bring out so much more of the character than when you're in a group. But yeah, I had so many dry spells, and I stick with it. I don't leave it. I know the dry spell is going to end at some point. Right now I've got 2 games going, and it's great.
Yeah, for me, I can't run more than one game, just because I try to put as much as I can into the game when it comes to intrigue and spinning off other possible shadowy events around my players. So it always gives them a bit of paranoia, and it's funny because one of these past games, the players were thinking about, and I like it because they were very paranoid, but they started getting into kind of an analysis paralysis behavior, in which they were kind of overthinking of oh, well, if this guy gave us this, then it's possibly bug, and that's how he knows everything about us, and oh my god, what about my sister who I see constantly, is she in danger? And everyone's like, oh, what about my friend that I, work with? Is that person in danger? And I'm kind of had to step in and okay, guys, I'm glad you're paranoid. I'm glad I'm putting you on edge, but I'm going to do a little bit of metagaming to get you guys back on track and give you some, relieve your anxiety about what's the baddies are going to do next, or what they know about who you are.
Right, because they will tend to overthink things. I have been in situations when, I'm putting forth a mystery, and they're kicking around different ideas, and what grabs me the most is when they actually hit the idea, and then they move on. It's it's over here. So close. You had it in your hand and you put it down and so yeah, overanalyzing, like you say, analysis paralysis. I like that one.
Yeah, and I think when you and you know, because of COVID, I've been running this group online. However, I think players, when they start throwing around ideas, you know, and I'm sure one or two of them will always be looking at the GM and kind of reading them. So there's always that, oh, I hit upon the idea because the GM kind of perked up or, you know, leaned forward to listen in a little more than the other previous ideas. And, you know, from a body language point of view, it kind of helps players guide along. But like, as you said, you know, once you get into the online realm, you kind of miss that body language that is communicated when you're playing in face to face.
Right, and sometimes you intentionally give away something through your visual, your face, your posture. It's like, okay, I want them to really take that path over there, so I'm gonna just kind of do a little gasp or something like that that lets someone know, if they're watching you, oh, I have to go over here now. A little subtle manipulation, but still fun nonetheless.
Yeah. So I guess we can move on to thoughts about Cyberpunk Red. Have you started running it, or are you still 2020?
I am. I'm a diehard 2020 guy. Red does have a lot of interesting things that I'm going to dissect. I like the idea of dual class. I really see that as a benefit because, you know, sometimes your medic might be, you know, pretty decent hacker, or your hacker might be, you know, pretty decent at medicine. So I love the idea of them making multi-classes. I haven't seen it played out yet, but I do like that idea.
And Rock Unlimited.
Well, I mean, 2020 had the multi-class, but that was only from the interface magazines.
Exactly. A lot of people don't even, well, I can't say a lot, I'm going to say newer players don't know about the interface magazines because they were tied to the 2020 version of Cyberpunk. And I love the interface magazines so much. Like, one of my favorite characters I use is Spider Lady. It's like, okay, yeah, this chick is completely brilliant, but completely batshit.
I mean, the interface magazines, like, they were rare when they were new. They've only gotten more so in the years past, but it's like Punk 21, the British version of interface. Like, even hardcore Cyberpunk fans have never heard of that.
Yeah,
right. I've only heard of that myself only over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I started hearing about it from your site, Wisdom.
I mean, it took me forever to track down all the issues.
I have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but it's those. I love fanzines of any kind, really, and the fact that there were two fairly professional. I mean, obviously they were both amateur jobs because they're little 4x8s, but
actually, that
just so much fun to me.
Yeah, they were great. They covered the things that were going to be later covered in 2020, like nomads and cops and, you know, AI and netrunners, and they touched on things that became standard.
Yeah, they expanded on stuff that really needed to be expanded on, but weren't being touched anywhere. I mean, it is a credit to Chris Hockabout and Thaddeus Howes, just how much they were able to include in such a relatively small space, and only with 6 issues. A lot of what they put in went official.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I use that stuff to this day.
Same here. You know, I remember it was either your last episode or the episode before that when Cybersmily mentioned the Corvette Cyberlegs, which was originally an interface.
Yep.
Yeah,
Indeed.
and I think interface, and it's funny because I'm looking right at my 4 issues that I only have. To me, interface was a lot better than a couple of other fanzines. Like, I think Dragon kind of pushed various rules. However, a lot of them were like, yeah, this really isn't going to fit with any game, right? It's kind of specific. Whereas what was presented in interface could be applied to most, except for the Call of Cthulhu edition. But the rest of them definitely could be, plug and play at any point within anyone's campaign.
Precisely. And trust me, I plugged and I played.
Yeah,
So
the cover for issue 4 is still one of my favorite pieces of cyberpunk art out there. That cyberpunk bar with the hookah hanging from the ceiling and all that. I mean, it's the same issue that Corvette Cyberlegs were introduced.
Right. And the Interface magazine introduced my favorite cyber weapon. I don't know if you guys have favorite cyber weapons, but mine is the Palm Bomb. It's a cyber arm that has a shotgun in it, and it will not go off. I mean, you can punch and fight all day long, but when you make that solid palm contact with somebody, that's when it goes off. So you know you're going to hit. Because if you can get your hand on them...
that had to have been inspired by Chris's, by Pris's weapon from Bubblegum Crisis, where she runs up and hits him and the gun goes off. It's a good cyber weapon. I approve.
My other one is Spitting Cobra.
Oh yeah.
Those who don't know about that one, you have poison glands, implanted in your face, and you have hollow points on your canines, sometimes elongated, and just like the spitting cobra in nature, you open your mouth, you aim at the target, and you spit in their face. I don't care how much armor you have, you're susceptible to poisons because you have eyes.
That's very true. And that's the beauty of cyberpunk, is that shit matters. Like, oh, I target somebody's eyes? Well, suddenly they can't see.
Exactly. And a neurotoxin in your eyes, I've got 35 points of armor, blah, 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 and reflex. Oh, yeah, you still got eyes.
Didn't help you in the slightest. Next time wear some smart shades or a visor.
Yeah, I recently had so I developed a big baddie that the players had to fight, and one of the players, so the majority of the players, had run-of-the-mill, guns and other implements of destruction. So this big baddie really didn't have to worry too much about them. However, one of the players decided, okay, I'm going to be an archer and use bows. And also I'm going to lace those arrows with the neurotoxin. Holy shit. Our bow's broken. And neurotoxin. It was bad, to say the least. Just because of how arrows work, and that big baddie almost went down like a chump.
But see, I love that it's innovative use of the world and the equipment in it. Not everything needs to be a gun. I mean, little mono blade is a beautiful thing. Yeah. Slice and dice, that's a great one. Hey, stretch this across the neck level, have someone chase you down the hallway, and bye baddie.
I don't know that you're gonna be able to get away setting up the slice and dice, but the mono wire itself is good stuff. I love seeing it represented in Johnny Mnemonic. Like, everybody gives that movie shit, but I think it's a great movie. And the dude with the cyber thumb is with the cyber thumb with the mono wire attachment. That was beautiful to see.
Yeah.
Perfect. I go ahead.
Yeah, so like Johnny Mnemonic definitely had some campiness to it, and I think that's what turned off some people. But I love that campiness because it had the definitely had the cyberpunk as genre as well as stuff that I could relate to within the game, which is always I always love movies that I can easily translate that into game mechanics.
Precisely. And I think that's why cyberpunk appeals to me so much above D&D. I've not really played too much D&D, so I'm not an expert, but cyberpunk presents me something I can put my hands on. I can overlay the world before me with a little bit of extra chrome, a little bit of extra neon, some cyberware. I can visualize it perfectly.
It's relatable.
Horses and knights, correct. Horses and knights and dragons, I love it. I mean, I'm definitely a fantasy fan, but I can't lay my hands on it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's cyberpunk is something you can immediately grasp. If you can envision the world outside your window, then you can throw some flying cars and some neon on top of that and grasp it easily.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Whereas, you throw dragons into the mix or weird monsters. I don't know. Magic just seems like a cheat to me. Just like anything's possible. Magic. Well,
I wouldn't go that far because I don't go that far because I actually like superheroes, and it's pretty much, you're a mutant or you're a wizard. You can do amazing, weird things that nobody else can do. So I can't really put down the, hand waviness of, hey, magic, because I do it with superpowers.
Sure, I wasn't trying to put it down. It doesn't appeal to me as much as.
Oh yeah, I definitely dig that.
As much as a game where the physics of the world work the same as the physics in our world, for the most part. I mean.
Oh
sure,
yeah.
Flying cars, but we can forgive that.
Yeah, you can imagine somebody with an artificial arm more than you can imagine a fireball going off from somebody just waving their hands at you.
Right.
So
Phil, go ahead.
I was actually going to start changing the subject, but if you want to continue talking about this.
Oh, no, go for it.
So, Phil, Wisdom is kind of a nomad type of GM. I'm more kind of street level spec ops type of thing. So what kind of games do you usually run?
Right now I'm doing a little blend of nomad / corporate. One of the guys is in trouble. He's out in the nomad territories. But mostly I like cops because one thing I've always noticed about some of these games and scenarios, you have these guys walking around with 30 points of armor, walking tanks, and by the rules, you can do that. But by the world standard, you can't. Because if somebody sees you walk around in all this armor, guess what? You're going to attract attention. And they're either going to try to test your armor or try to arrest you for having it. And in the Protect and Serve, which is, for those who don't know, the top supplement, they actually tell you what you can have, where you can have it. It's like, okay, you can have 15 points of armor and no more than that. Because other than that, we're going to pull you over and find out what you're up to. And I'm sorry, but I like to use the world as the world. You walk around in heavy armor, somebody's going to notice. Unless you're in combat zone, then you're fine. But anywhere else outside the combat zone, you're going to attract attention, and it's probably going not to be the kind of attention that you're looking for.
Honestly, I think even inside the combat zone, if you're running around with the latest flak issue stuff, you're gonna people are gonna pay attention. If for anything else, other than you're a walking bag of loot.
Right, they're gonna pay attention, but they're not likely to mess with you too much, unless again they want to test your armor. And I have worn armor, not because I'm a cop or anything. I used to work for the Maryland Science Center, and we did a demo of different cop stuff. So I got to wear full riot armor. It's hot, and it's heavy, and trust me, when those guys are done their mission, whatever they're doing, they come out of that stuff. So I can't see a character walking around in 30 points of armor all the time, every adventure. No, you can't do it. So you don't have to worry about the tanks because you can't logically wear that much armor all the time.
Yeah, I hear the complaints about people wearing, like players wearing too much armor and all that. I hear that as a complaint from GMs all the time, and I'm just all like, well, how did you lose control of your game that's socially acceptable anywhere they're going, or that they can possibly feel comfortable enough to function if they're wearing heavy armor, like just 24/7. Like, they're not going to be allowed in bars. They're not going to, like, corporates aren't going to hire them because they draw too much attention. Really, other than the most basic of thug work, they're not going to be employable.
Yeah, and I think
exactly, and that's the whole thing.
As a referee, no worries. As a referee, you kind of have to tell players about that. Like, oftentimes I have to remind my players, use common sense, right? Kind of draw in real world situations. If you feel like you can carry an assault rifle into a local pizzeria without anyone batting an eye, it's going to be the same way in Cyberpunk. The expectations should be the same as you have today, with the understanding, yes, there are more liberal gun laws here in which you definitely have open carry in the Cyberpunk world, but there's also an open carry limitation of, assault rifles are still bad, shotguns are still bad, and heavily armored people. And again, I don't think they really got into that type of lore of, people with Metal Gear, shouldn't also be, or should be viewed as suspicious by everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be. It's never really mentioned anywhere,
But see, that's why it's never a problem for me in my game, because I use that common sense. It's like, okay, you're going to walk around with this big, heavy gun. Okay, the police don't like that, And I actually, once I let this guy do whatever he wanted. I said, okay, go for it. Of course, he took a solo. He took 10 combat sense, 10... He took, basically, used just 40 points for basic stuff. He couldn't read the right, but he could shoot a gun. Okay, I'm going to let you do this. Do you want to do this? Yeah, I want to do this. And I let him do it, and even bother to try to pull him over from a cruiser, call for a Navy, and became, a pink mist. It's just easier to flatline you than to try to arrest you, because you got so much armor on. We could shoot it day long. That's going to cost us manpower, bullets. Let's just call it AB4 to end this whole thing.
Yep.
Makes sense to me.
I think
or if you're a street level guy, hey, a Molotov cocktail is almost free. Let's see your armor do something with that.
Yeah, the other thing, and I've never really got into cop campaigns, is, to me, for a cop campaign, the amount of wealth of story ideas, hooks, etc., that is in our media today that you can pull from is just it's almost on the borderline of exhaustive, of where you can pull various stories from.
Cop campaigns or private investigator campaigns, they provide some of the easiest, like, gaming structure to make a game work. You've got a career, even if you can have multiple roles within that. Like, there's going to be cop net runners, there's going to be cop facemen, there's going to be cop, like, detectives and SWAT guys and all sorts of stuff that you can all have working on the same case. Even as a private investigator, this can work. It provides the characters with the means of employment and the, I don't want to say reins or like railroad tracks, but it definitely provides like a safety net for the GM to say, hey, look, you guys have this job. Here comes a case. When this case is done, there'll just be another case.
Right. Boundaries. I think the word you're looking for is boundaries. But
sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's as good a word as any. Boundaries. It gives the GM the tool he needs to make sure that the game goes in the direction that he wants it to go. Whereas if I've seen, hell, I was guilty of it. I used to run just like anybody can play whatever they want. I'll try and make it work. Off the cuff games that just, they were kind of a nightmare to wrangle everybody into cooperating with each other enough to make the game move past the beginning stages. It's the same with a military campaign or a nomad campaign. Anytime you get everybody on the same page with the same basic expectations and backgrounds, it just makes everything easier for the GM.
But I find that if you give them, even if not all the same character type, like if you give them a common goal, and then you got to find some organic way to bring them all together. Like the one campaign when I had when people's heads were suddenly exploding and they weren't being shot. So, hey, I'm a medic, so I got to find out why these people's heads are exploding. Hey, my friend's head exploded. I got to find out why. I'm the friend of the medic, so I'm going to travel along with you. So they had a common goal, but different reasons for being there. So you have to find some way to organically bring them together if you're going to do the hodgepodge. Everybody plays what you want.
Yeah.
Once you get over that hump, okay, we're on the same page. We have a common goal. Yes, you're a fixer, you're a nomad, but we're going over here now.
I don't think I want to be in a game where various people's heads are exploding randomly.
There's a whole storyline behind that. We don't have that. That's when I had basically I'll tell you, I'll skip to the end. Corporate advertising, on his way out, younger, bolder guys coming up behind him, devises this method to beam advertisements quickly into somebody's heads, and some people's neurological systems didn't like it, so they popped their heads off. And thank you. And
just appreciating it. Yeah, that's good stuff.
And he was a decreasing threat, and by that I mean at the beginning of the adventure he was still in his position, but he was scamming money from the corporations to make this project happen. So the first encounter was him using corporate funds. Second encounter with his goons, not as powerful because he was then tapping into his money. And then by the end of the adventure, anybody who was not dead, he was just hiring guys off the street. Because of his desperation, he was just still trying to make this thing work, but he went from corporate resources to his own resources to digging up guys out of the gutter to try to shoot you. And that's why I think about decreasing threat. So at the end of the adventure, I gave him the choice. Hey, what do you want to do with this guy? You've tracked him down to his home. He's got bags in hand. He's heading out to parts unknown. Oh, he killed my friend, so I'm going to blow up his car. Okay, that is your option, and there you go.
Cool. Sounds like a fun game. Just so you're aware, we're at the hour mark. Again, Phil, normally we go for hour and a half, 2 hours, depending upon how the conversation goes. So I just want to make sure that it's cool with you, that we continue going, or if you have any time limits. All right, great.
Oh, no. I gave up my bedtime long. Mom may still call me up every once in a while, say if I'm eating right, but she will never say, "Hey, it's time to go to bed."
Yeah.
But
Cool.
Mom,
Gosh, I love the moms. They're always looking out for us.
oh yeah, my mom loves the cyberpunk games.
Really?
Yeah, I actually, my
Listen in as well. So yeah.
oh yeah, I started doing it from my I started doing it my normal weekly game, bi-weekly, sorry, at my mom's house because where I was living, the people didn't understand or like gaming. So, hey, I'll just go to mom's house. And she listens intently. She said it reminds her of the old radio serials from the time when she was a kid. And
Yeah.
she'll get into it. She's like, why is he doing that? He's going to get himself killed and da 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 da. Da. And she loves interacting with the characters. I mean, she stands on the sideline. She's not actually playing, but she'll interject as older folks tend to do, and she loves it, and I love doing it for her.
Yeah, that's cool. Like I said, my mom, when I had the game room, my mom lived next door, and she'd just come over and like sit just outside or come in and sit in the corner and just listen to me run, listen to the other people, listen to the game itself. And yeah, she'd get mad if I didn't tell her we were gaming.
Yeah, I mean, my mom kind of flourished my love of role-playing games, but, she really didn't get into them. She was just happy that I was happy and also that I wasn't doing any drugs or misbehaving because I was too busy gaming. But yeah.
That's another thing, kids. Do role-playing games, not drugs.
It's debatable whether it's cheaper or not.
Afford both.
Yeah, but you don't lose your teeth.
True. And you only have to buy the game book once.
I mean, I don't know about that. I'm pretty familiar with the gamer diet of Cheetos and Mountain Dew. Teeth loss is inevitable.
Well, in gaming, you never have to orally pleasure someone to get more gaming stuff.
I don't know. I've seen some motherfuckers pretty desperate for dice, let me tell you.
Hey, buddy, I need some new dice.
Hey, boy.
Boy, this just took an interesting turn, didn't it?
So, getting back to Red, did you want to give any, of your opinion? So, for me and Wisdom, we kind of did a 2 or 3 part episode dissecting what we liked and what we didn't. Just the key highlights. We loved what special abilities became, which was great. And I think our biggest letdown was the simplicity of the guns and equipment.
Yeah, they did take a little bit of the flavor away. I know they say, well, you can get a techie to augment and do this, and it's like, well, why would I need him to do that if it were already, a Styre Aug or a Walther PPK? That's flavor. I mean, they all do the same thing. They put bullets down range, but they have that character to them that memorable, I should say. So yeah, the genericness of it is a bit of a letdown. I will say that. Give me some flavor, something I can sink my teeth into.
Yeah, for me with Cyberpunk, when you compare to other game systems, D&D is the big one, right? And the flavor they have comes with magic, whether it's magic weapons or magic items or spells. And to me, it seemed like Red kind of took away that diversity or complexity that other game systems still kind of have, even though they've streamlined the mechanics of it, but they still have that variety outside of it. And it kind of, I think that was the major disappointment for me, was just how they took away one of the key aspects that I loved about the game was that variety, the ability to create and do things like, for example, even like programs, they removed the program rules. And it seemed like they removed the drug creation rules and all these little mechanics that they developed in 2020 on how a player can create their own were kind of pulled out for whatever reason. I assume to make it a little more simplistic and streamlined to the system, which can be good, especially for new players. But again, I think you have the Jumpstart kit, which should have been the simplistic, streamlined version of a more complex system.
Mm-hmm.
So those were my thoughts on it.
I mean,
I do like the. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, my thoughts on Red have been fully explored in our previous 8-hour review of Red. But
I'm glad. Sorry, I tend to get over talkative when I get nervous.
No,
Sorry.
by all means. I was gonna say I do love me some gun porn. Gear porn, period. I like being able to look through a catalog of stuff, and Red is lacking in that department.
I like I said, with a lot of people, it seems to draw. I want people to come into the hobby, first of all. So I'm glad that RTG, started reprinting the old books, and that 2077 are doing what they're doing, and Red kind of connects that. Well, to 2077, and it grows our community. But some of the things that, like you said, like the streamlining. But one thing I don't understand, I'm not going to say I don't like it, is again, since I'm the cop guy, that what's it called? The new one in Red, the new cop special ability.
Yeah, it's not authority backup.
Yeah, it's like, that's a foregone conclusion. When you're a cop, even if you're a rookie, somebody puts out an all call, they don't say, well, I like this guy, I'm not going to go rescue him. No, it's like, he's a cop, I'm going. You don't really need that special ability, part of the cop makeup. I like the authority because, hey, I'm sitting here from these little gangers, I'm going to straighten my back up, bellow, and get them to cow. But, I'm the cop guy, so I like the special ability as it was.
Well, I think that some of the special abilities, and for me, authority, it never really...
tweaking.
Yeah, it needed some tweaking. I think it needed, authority should be applied to intimidate, interrogate, or give some type of bonus, right? To other skills, or similar to what they did with Street Deal and the Fixer. You should also have some snitches and other contacts to follow up leads, which I think they could have done in Serve and Protect. Now, Serve and Protect was a great resource, but I think that resource could have also expanded a little more, like they did with Wildside, when it came to expanding the special ability and showing you what you can do. Because, again, in the basic book, it was, and there's a few of them that are like that, like credibility, resource. It kind of glosses over what you could possibly do with them, but nothing really game mechanic wise that you
way too many of the original Cyberpunk 2020 special abilities were just these abstract things that were left up to GM interpretation,
except for combat sense, which had a
definite combat sense, which is that was the first thing we did with Interlock Unlimited is make all the special abilities work like combat sense. And we removed the whole. The other problem with the 2020 special abilities is half of them relied on you being employed for them to be useful. Like if you were a corporate or a cop or media, and media is not media's. But if you were a corporate or a cop and you lost your job, suddenly your special ability was worthless.
Yes and no. Yes, definitely for the corporate, but let's say you just got fired on Thursday. The bad guys, you don't know yet that you're not a cop anymore, so you go into the hood and you were a cop 2 days ago, and
well, that's
it'll
the bad guys knew you personally and knew you were a cop. Like if you don't have that badge, it makes it a little bit harder to convince new schmucks that you're not a cop or that you're still have any authority whatsoever.
Yeah, right, you can talk the talk, right? And
sure, you can talk the talk, but you're not going to have anything to back it up.
Right, but game mechanic wise, then that would be a human perception roll, right? Oh, you're just talking out your ass. Versus, oh, I failed. Well, okay, I believe you're still a cop, and I can, I could be taken in. So I think authority didn't necessarily was tied to your career and that you had to be a cop. I think it's allowed you to muscle your way through it. Yes, people are going to call on you.
It didn't allow you to be like a private detective. You had to have some innate employment to have the authority in the first place.
Right, but yeah, I got you.
I mean, you could be a corporate cop, I guess, or you could be a Fed or something like that. But like a private detective, no, you're not a cop anymore. You don't get to use authority.
No, you can use authority because, to me, a combination. Let me talk through it.
Okay. Yeah.
So authority is you don't have an agency behind you. You have the law, which is above employment. So from an authority point of view, I know the law well enough to say, hey, you broke Section 8 of the Penal Code of whatever. You're going to go to jail, and I can even make it a citizen arrest on it, even though I'm not a cop anymore. I still have some capabilities of doing things, and you kind of see, and it's even real life that, a brother of a cop kind of knows the laws or was a cop and decided to quit. They're still making citizen arrests, and they're still doing things within the law that a private citizen can do. And that's where authority comes in. It's what the law gives you as a person, or a person who knows what the laws are.
I don't know. That's
just my view of how authority works versus resources. Resources, that kind of you need someone to give you the resources or have the resources.
I mean, okay, here we go. The authority special ability, according to the 2020 rulebook, is the ability to intimidate or control others through your position as a lawman. This attribute represents the cop's ability to call on the forces of the law and government to get what he wants. So basically, you're using it as a backup to like an intimidation role. Again, it's a pretty abstract special ability, and
it does have some abstractness to it.
I hate abstract rules. They bug the crap out of me.
One thing I'm looking forward to in Reddit, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was hoping for like the new Chromebook, because I wonder if anybody thought about this. Okay, there was this calamitous world war. there's junk laying out there. Lots of it. Bullets, armor, guns, all strewn about the planet. Let's see some of that stuff pop up in the new Chromebook that, somebody's, put a little spit and polish on it, but hey, here you go. You want some new tech? We dug it out of the wasteland somewhere.
I don't know how the new Chromebook is supposed to work, considering that they've removed pretty much 100% of the gear porn that made previous edition so very enjoyable. Like they've made guns and weapons in general so generic that like individual entries for any weapon just seem useless at this point.
Fair point.
I mean, I get what they're going for. They're going to make things as easy and simple for new players as possible, and like let shit run quickly. And I get that. It's the new modern ethos for gaming. It's just not the philosophy I subscribed to.
I don't think the new players are given enough credit. I mean, I was a chowderhead at 17 or 18 when I first started playing, and I figured it out. And these kids are even smarter than I.
It's not necessarily new players that I'm talking about. It's just the new gaming philosophy where it's the trend towards simpler and simpler games, rules wise, mechanics wise, in favor of like quick action and quick storytelling. A lot of narrative control is given to players and all that, and I get it. That's the new hipness. That's the hot shiny. But like I said, I'm old school. I like my rules. I like my crunch. I like my. As I've said before, I really hesitate to use the word realistic when it comes to any role-playing game. But yeah, I like my rules to have the crunch that aids in the
verisimilitude or some French word.
Yeah.
I can't.
Aids in the simulation of,
But that's why I say new players, because they don't have the background that we have. They came up with this, streamlined, system, this new way of doing it. It's going to be more effective on them because they have nothing to gauge it against.
Sure.
Where somebody's older, I've done my crunch and I want to do something simple now. Okay, that's great because you have had that experience. But these new streamlined games, I believe, just my opinion, that they're focusing mostly on the new gamers who don't have those checks and balances that we have.
And I think, reading in Reddit and Facebook when I was on at the time, and other various social media outlets, is that Cyberpunk Red is introducing a lot of new players to the game, and a lot of new players are looking for an alternative to Dungeons & Dragons, so they're moving on, finding Red, playing it, and a section of those players, after reading Red, are like, I want more. However, RTG is very slow, I would say, in getting production done. I mean, granted, the quality is great, and of course, the more quality you have, the slower things are going to take. So they're looking at Cyberpunk 2020, and God bless RTG for what they've done in keeping, all their old supplements available and printable, and you can get a physical copy of them still.
God bless them.
And those new players who get into Red are like, okay, so 2020, let me start digging into that because I want to know more about the lore. I want to know more about, or get more gear, and like you said, the gear porn of it, and getting into 2020, which I don't know is going to have an adverse effect to Red's popularity. I don't think so, because I think there's still people who are going to continue doing Red, and yeah, I think it's definitely the system of the future, but for right now, it's a bit stagnant. Because how long has Red been out? Almost a year?
Almost a year.
Yeah, a little over a year.
Has it been? I thought it'd been longer than that. Man.
Because the Jumpstart kit came out. See, I got a copy for my birthday, so this was pre-pandemic when I got the Jumpstart kit.
You're right. I just have lost all track of time, apparently.
That's what the pandemic has done to us.
Oh my God. I don't know what day of the week it is anymore.
It's that one that ends with a Y.
Yeah. Is today the day I've got to do something, or do I sleep all day? Oh, I have to do something. Damn it.
Yeah. Am I still in my underwear? Okay, it must be Saturday.
So I think it's interesting how a lot of those new players are coming into the system and, you know, are questioning, well, should I get into 2020? And you have that debate of, well, 2020 has dozens of books that you can read through, master, and even bring into Red.
Right.
And that's,
I mean, I love that. I mean, some people are actually doing a lot of conversions.
and it's not like the D&D various editions where a lot of conversion needed to happen between systems. Yeah, I mean, the stats stay the same, hit points a little bit, but spells were changed dramatically. Monsters.
There's really no compatibility between systems. Like AD&D does not convert to third edition. Third edition does not convert to fifth edition. I skipped fourth edition because god damn, it's the most worthless fucking game I've ever seen. I don't care who says different.
Don't hold it in. How do you really feel?
I feel that fourth edition was nothing more than an attempt to make a live action or a tabletop MMO RPG video game where everything in the entire game was geared to move from one combat to the next, which is why all spells had like a 2-minute spell limit, fly, and all the stuff that you used to use to travel. Now you just take it all for granted that you're moving from one place to another and skip it all.
Yep.
I read a advanced D&D, third edition D&D. If you read it, like the adventure modules, they're full of like giant like descriptions of rooms. They give the history and all that, and then it gives the monster in the room or whatever. And it's just this little stat block and blah blah blah. With fourth edition, it was all just, oh, here's the monster stat block. Here's a little tiny little blah 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 about the room, because we provide this map for you. But it's just a battle map. Move to the next one, and add repeat.
Yeah.
I hated fourth edition.
Hey, is Red supposed to get any modules or anything that you know of?
So they
put out some free stuff on the Artal site. Some free adventure.
Just pushed out a thing called the data pack, which you can buy as physical or download as PDF. That has some scenarios as well as, I believe, some battle maps and some other juicy things that you can get.
Oh, see, I like the sound of that. That can ease also the new players into it and say, hey, you don't have to really think too much. Here's a module. Go for it.
Yeah, they're like the online content. They push out stuff on a fairly regular basis, and it's pretty good stuff.
Excellent.
I do wish they'd give us more news about like actual like books that they might be putting out. I feel like the anticipation of that kind of stuff is killing me. but I don't even know what to expect. Like, apparently there's a Chromebook coming out at some point, but like I said, I don't have any clue what they're going to put in that. Hopefully,
Right.
they'll add individual guns and individual pieces of tech and give us the gear porn that we're craving with it, and maybe remove some of that generic generality.
Feel?
Yeah, so the data pack is a pad of 50 double-sided character sheets.
Mm-hmm.
6 double-sided 11 by 17 map sheets for a total of 12 maps. A booklet
Nice,
with
that's a good
6 new Scream Sheet adventures and 6 20 things in Night City lists to add new people, places, and things in your campaign. And tons of lore with it. It's, retail is $20, digital is $8.
Yeah, no, that's a good deal right there. I like that.
And they're
Yeah,
also,
that's cool. I like that.
also publishing a net running deck, which basically is all the programs are on flashcards. So a 52 program deck with black ice, floor cards, all sturdy poker sized cards. That's going to retail for $17 and $6 digital.
Oh, see that puts a new twist on it.
Yeah. As for like Black Chrome, I know that's been talked about back in, like I said, when I was gaming with Mike in 2014. He was talking about it, so it's one of those things that has been in the works for quite some time. Hopefully it'll be coming out soon. We'll see.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. But again, you always got to take into consideration of our Talsorian. Yes, they put out great products. They just take a while. I remember with V3, and basically it was announced, and it was going to be debuting, and then 5 years later, it debuted from when it was supposed to debut. And I think with Red, they kind of waited a little before they really announced it. But there was always the talk of Black Chrome coming out, which again,
Right.
Yeah, I remember they announced Black Chrome on the 2077 forums as something that they were working on. And
yeah. And
that
rumor,
was
and this is only
2016.
rumor from me, of overhearing conversation somewhere in the nethers of the world, was one of the reasons why it's been delayed was because the original Black Chrome was geared more towards the 2020 setting, and now with Red, that has changed dramatically everything.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Has now had to take all the work that they've done so far and start converting it, changing it, and making it more balanced in the new system. Or they might have scrapped it and started fresh, as of a year ago.
Well, they have a talented team, so I have no doubt that, by Christmas next year we'll have something.
Yeah, and I think we, as a gaming generation, kind of been spoiled. Back in the 90s, where it was the golden age of role-playing games, and that we would get something almost every 3 months to 6 months, a new product would hit the shelves.
I mean, we had, in addition to our Talsorian, we had Atlas games and Ionis games pushing out stuff. Yeah, between like 1990 and 1996, it was just a glorious time to be
Yes.
a fan of cyberpunk. Gaming in general, I mean.
Yeah, gaming in general, it was amazing. It's the variety of games Some of them we still have, some not, but the variety was out there, and it was fantastic, at least for me, because again, I was still going to gaming cons.
I was just buying stuff left and right, like getting like anything that I thought I could use for Cyberpunk. Yeah, that I would try and pick up on the discount. There was a game store that I used to go to that sold used games, and I'd get all the James Bond supplements and source books, all the Twilight 2000, and a very limited amount of Shadowrun stuff. Just the stuff that I thought I could directly apply to Cyberpunk. Cyberspace.
Yeah, I always had the intent to do stuff like that. Like, one thing I really wanted to try was, if you remember the game DC Heroes, I think it was by Mayfair.
Yep.
They had one supplement that was like all gadgets, and they gave rules on how to create gadgets with the various roles. And I always wanted, and I still want to try to create some type of, and again, Red kind of took it that way, but just how you can create various gadgets as a techie, and coming up with a difficulty level similar to, you know, the drug rules and the program rules that were already in the book, and just taking it one step further and doing it for like cyberware or just any other gadget that you were trying to like come up with, and be able to build whatever you want when you want it. I never get around to actually writing up those rules.
Now, how many programs does the new net running system have? I mean, is it like a dozen and a half?
I think it's like around a little less than a dozen for a Netrunner's programs. But
Okay.
for a Datafort, there's like probably a dozen or 2 dozen that are out there. But it's not as wide and variety, or have a variety compared to 2020, because I think 2020 and how they changed net running in general is streamlined it a bit, so you don't need to have all those special programs. And because you're not net running the world, you're not going to encounter enemy net runners, so there's no need for a net runner to have any type of black ice to kind of fight the various other net runners. And also they gave the net runner the ability to do what's called zap, which is basically just do damage to a program, so that alleviates the whole anti-program programs that a net runner would usually require.
So yeah, I guess yeah. And it's all, you know, augmented reality, so it's kind of like, you know, a deadly version of Pokemon Go.
I mean, the new system kind of reminds me of the 2013, in that it wasn't necessarily three-dimensional, right? You had one node that you would go into that led to another node that could lead to 2 or 3 more nodes that you would head off to. So it's very linear in that way. So it seems like they've kind of gone back to how 2013 did it, to make it more streamlined and easier to use.
Who knows? That, I mean, it is their resource. It would seem logical that they would, you know, use it.
Yep.
Can't argue with that.
I do miss the interfaces from 2013. You know, super realistic, cartoonish, and you know, it was like 3 different, you know, reality settings they had. It, you know, ultra realistic, cartoonish, and something in the middle. So yeah, you're facing a hellhound, but it's just puppy, but it's gonna fry your brain. But it's a puppy dog.
Yep.
But that was a nice little bit of fluff that I liked. Even though I never, I tried to run Netrunners, it was still a little bit too much for me. So I, like most others, relegated it to the realm of the NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the common fix. Well, it's still the common fix.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with running or having net running in my 2020 game is I've had too many players not learn the rules. Because if the player knows the rules and I know the rules, you can kick out a run very quickly.
Right.
However, if the player is constantly like, "Oh, what does this program do? What am I facing? What's going on here?" That's where it can really slow down, and I think that's where a lot of players or groups face that challenge. Was because the player was like, "I want to play a netrunner. I've never done it before, and I'm not going to read the rules because my GM knows or my referee knows all about it. So he's just going to tell me what I need to do," which just doesn't work, especially if you're at a table with multiple players.
Right. Hey, what size of groups do you guys use? Because I usually don't run for any more than 4 because Cyberpunk is supposed to be fast. It's supposed to be, right now, I don't see having 8, 9, 10 players around the table trying to decide what they want to do.
I personally don't like running more than 3 to 4 people these days. I'll run 4 players because I like having the larger audience. But like the best gaming experiences are with 1 to 2 players. Like you said, your one-on-ones. They provide the richest like character development and story exploration, whereas larger groups, you just get so, anytime there's a combat, you get so bogged down on it, that's the entire session. So you miss out on that feeling of a quick, fast, dirty combat, and you miss out on a lot of the character development, the personal storyline. So there's a trade-off. I've run ridiculously large groups. I never, if I have to do it again, I'll do it, but I never look forward to it. Once you start getting like 5 or more players, the game really, you're just moving from one combat to the next. That's all the game is anymore.
For me, I'm currently running for 6 online. And it's a manageable size currently. It all depends on who's playing when it comes to size. And yeah, I really don't want to go over 6 people because of combat. So, and even for storytelling, it's very hard to get, 7 people, 8 people to continue to do what they want to do, because usually by the time you have that many players, it's the party's going to split up and do their own thing. And each session's going to be back and forth between various little groups within the group to role play out. So for me, I think 4 is probably the sweet spot. But again, depends on the players. Like 4 spanking brand new role players might be a little difficult. Versus 6 might even be, not too bad. But again, it all depends on the players, what they like. Hopefully you don't have disruptive players. who are trying to take the limelight and the spotlight away from the rest of the group, because that's also can be detrimental to any size of group.
Anytime I hear about one of you guys running like 6 or more players on a regular basis, I'm just like, man, you're a better GM than I will ever be. You have more patience and understanding. I can barely open a chip packet without getting angry and frustrated.
The only time I've run more than 4 players is when I ran at conventions. But then, the characters are already drawn out. People, no matter what they picked, I knew what the characters were capable of and where they would fit into the scenario. But when you have like 6 people who all have their own ideas and visions, wrangling them, that's herding cats right there for me.
Yep. And when it comes to combat, what is the combat supposed to be doing, story-wise? Is it the showdown with, the main target? Or is it just to give some annoyance to the players? Right. So, depending upon the combat, right? Most of the combats with my 6 players take probably half the session at most, because they're not facing really big baddies. Now, when they assaulted a facility, that lasted 2 sessions of combat, going from they fight this wave of guards, then they go deeper into the facility and start fighting another batch of guards. So that session can be complex, right? Because of the amount of opponents that they have to fight through. But when it comes to just regular off the street, just causing the group a little bit of annoyance, or doing like a side adventure, combat usually doesn't last too long, because they're facing weaker enemies.
Right. Makes sense.
So, what do you guys want to talk about now?
Oh, things are happening.
Things are happening.
Computer issues. I don't know. Bill, what's your favorite cyberpunk movie?
Strange Days.
That's
Nice.
a good one. That's a very good one.
I actually used that as the blueprint for my a psychological thriller that I did. Guy comes from Baltimore, hometown. He gets a job at some small brain dance studio, and he is confounded by these clips that he's been left of these acts of violence, and he's not really knowing what to do, and so he's just befuddled by all these things that keep coming at his doorstep. And he realizes that at one point the person wearing the brain dance rig was standing at the door of his house or his apartment. So he then became a target. So he had to find out who this killer was who was sending these clips, before he ended up on the clip. So I use Strange Days as my basis for that.
That's good stuff right there.
Oh, thank you. I like layers. I like layers in my game.
Yep.
Layers
are good.
Strange Days is such an underrated film. Angela Bassett is the avatar of just badass in that movie.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, when it comes to and again, there's various favorites of mine, but when it comes to a definite tie-in to Cyberpunk 2020 would be Johnny Mnemonic, just because you had pretty much every single role portrayed in that movie.
Yeah, and done well too.
Yeah.
Right. And that's also why I like Strange Days, because you have Lenny Nero, the Fixer, former cop, Angela Bassett, Mace, the waitress turned solo,
Yeah.
Philo Gant, the crazed corporate, the ex-girlfriend, the rocker, the best friend, the PI, the gangers, his henchmen. It had even Tick. Remember, Tick was a techie.
Mm-hmm. The scene where they give him the brain dance that lets him run again was like the saddest thing in the movie. Like, just Jesus Christ, just torture that poor bastard.
Yeah.
I also love the brain dance.
Yeah.
I still don't know which is better, brain dance or VR, because brain dance is directly from the brain. You feel everything, but VR you can project anything. You might not be able to feel it, but you can see it.
To me, I mean, they're not really comparable. Like, from our scope, they're comparable in that, you plug into both. But as far as like in the world of 2020, like VR is just how you experience the net. Whereas brain dance, that's like watching a movie and getting a massage at the same time.
But remember what he said in the movie, it's not like TV, only better, it's life. It's a part of someone's life.
Yeah, it's bits and snippets of just recordings from the point of view of a person for like 5 minutes or so. It's that's what it feels like to be an 18-year-old girl taking a shower.
Yep.
With all the emotions too.
Yeah.
In my current campaign, one of my guys is a braindance producer who's making a braindance commercial for the local burger joint. So you get to taste the burger. You get to taste the burger and the shakes and.
I don't know if that's a good idea for most burger joints. It looks good, but you don't want to taste it.
Well, see, what they do is just like what you do in a regular burger joint. You have this beautiful picture, and you get this squishy little thing on your plate.
Yeah.
Same thing with the brain dance commercial. Get
this delicious frickin' made by a chef burger.
Right, but when you get a plate, you get this little squishy burger.
Yeah.
With artificial flavoring to improve the taste.
What is this, like 50% soy bullshit you're putting on my plate?
Hey, that's Moulins. They have more beef in their burgers than any other burger joint. Moulins is the burger joint in my world. But that and Otaku Bell.
No.
Yeah, Japanese Mexican.
There's still there's a Mayfair put out this game called Underground, and it was like a superhero cyberpunk book.
I have it.
Art by Jeff
it
Darrow. But it's got a restaurant in it called Tasty Ghoul, and I imported that. Like that came straight to my game. Now with more peoples.
People eating people.
Exactly.
Soil and green and people, so why should it be?
So we're about 10 minutes to the 2-hour mark. So, I don't know how much more we got, or how much fuel we still have.
I don't got much fuel. I had to take some pain pills before starting, and they're starting to kick in.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll end the show here. Phil, if you want to stick around, we can talk a little bit after the show.
Definitely.
And for those out on the interwebs, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and comment on those. Those who are listening live, you know who you are, and we appreciate you attending and watching these videos. So I am Cybersmily. You can find all my work on cybersmily.net. It's a fan site for Red and 2020 with a lot of goodies there.
I am Wisdom. I run Datafortress2020, the largest and most comprehensive Cyberpunk 2020 resource on the planet. You can get a hold of me just about anywhere. By all means, leave if you have any requests, comments, or criticisms. Leave a comment on our YouTube.
Yep. Also, thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Who's speaking?
Who got me into the Cyberpunk Uncensored, and made me a moderator and all that sort of good stuff. Hey, Rob.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'd like to thank Rob for hosting us on Cyberpunk Uncensored, and for providing us a space to have these discussions.
And if you go to Cyberpunk Uncensored Discord, you can find we have a channel specifically for the Forlorn dopes. So if you have any questions or topics you want to bring up, by all means, post there. I'm pretty active on Discord, so I will probably reply to you at all times. So again, appreciate you all listening, and thanks for Phil McCracken joining us, and we will talk to you in another 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.